Okay, well, I asked you this week if you'd send me some questions, and you also sent me some spiritual type of questions too. And here's one that's been sent in one of the comments for a public comment. This one was from, and this is what it says: Hi, Craig. Can you explain to me what the Akashic Records are about, and do you use it? Well, that's a really interesting question, actually, but let me address it from a slightly different way to what you would usually get from a psychic, because I'm also interested in other things such as the Naadi oracles, as you know, and also artificial intelligence, because you know I've got my new artificial intelligence oracle out there. So I think about this perhaps in a slightly different angle to what people might always consider it. So first of all, what is the Akashic Record? It's described in the ancient traditions of India, particularly in the yogic and mystical traditions, as a sort of cosmic library or an energetic kind of archive, I suppose you could call it, that records every thought, every word, every action, and every event in time, past, present, and even the future. And it shows the possibilities. And I suppose with what I do, really, I am in some ways in touch with that Akashic record. I would perhaps even describe it as being like a universal mind. I mean, the word itself, Akasha, it comes from Sanskrit, which is an amazing language in itself, which is being used in AI technology as well. But it comes from Sanskrit, and it means kind of like ether. It's ether or space. It's the subtle element that underlines all existence. It's like the spiritual hard drive of the universe, perhaps the spiritual cloud of the universe, in which all things are kind of stored in many ways. Mystics have talked about this a long time, so have seers as well as yogis, of course, and that people say they can access these records through deep meditation, through clairvoyance, or just pure spiritual grace. And it's a bit like I mentioned in one of the other questions earlier about Shruti, received knowledge. The knowledge just comes to you without having to think about it. It's kind of downloaded. And it's often a term that's very much misunderstood. People, like, instead of saying I give you a psychic reading, I'm going to give you a Akashic reading. Well, there's no difference really. What's the difference? I mean, you're getting it from your intuition, and from that intuition, which can be also influenced by your own mind, we try to get to the pure connection to the universal mind, I suppose, the Akashic record, and we can see into the past and into the future. One ways I use to see into the past is what we call psychometry, where you hold an object and talk about the vibrations on that object of the previous owners of that object, and start to describe their personality, characteristics, life, and so forth. And it's not necessarily all on the object, because once you hold the object, a ring or something like that, like this, if you hold a ring or something of somebody's and you start to get the information, part of it's on the ring, but then you somehow link into the Akashic as well. You start to get it on, you start to pick up on the bigger picture of that person. The object seeds your intuition into tell you more about the person. And sometimes using I find psychometry fascinating. I need people to work with for that. I'll have to do some psychometry demonstrations sometime, because I find it really interesting. You can sometimes say incredible things about a person, details about somebody that you couldn't possibly know. Real details, names and things like that come through it. Similar way to what works with spirit, which is slightly different to psychometry, massively different to psychometry, where you're in touch with a spirit person. So it is possible to connect into this universal mind of memories. And I think a lot of that happens when I tune into the future and pick up things about the future, which are there in potential form. The past is in happened form. It's happened. I understand it that when we go into the spirit world, we can relive everything that's happened in our life. We can replay it in its absolute entirety, and maybe even replay it like we would watch a video together on TV and with others, and talk about it. Oh, that's when you got married, and so and so, so and so. And do you remember? And all that's when so and so died, and that's when such and such happened. You know, all the big events in life we can rewind. This is what I think kind of happens when we get our life recall as we pass into the spirit world. We touch into not things that are in our memory. Our memories are faulty. You know, Jane can ask me things about 20 years ago, and I can't remember a thing about it, but Jane will remember it in great detail. We all have different abilities to be able to recall things. long term and short term. That's the limitations of our brain. But once we get into the spirit world, we have this Akashic record, which we can get into touch with massive things. And I think this is really, really interesting and very much a part of how I teach psychic development, for example, and I would encourage people to learn to connect with that. But also don't be taken in by the bullshit about, oh, I'm an Akashic reader, because that means nothing. That's someone trying to give fancy words to who they are. I'm a metaphysical Akashic record reader from the Celtic traditions and whatever, you know, they're trying to make it sound grandiose. That's when you're onto a fake psychic. Anyway, I also feel it relates a lot to the Nadis, because, you know, I talk up here on the lot on the Nadi palm leaves, and they're often described as a physical manifestation of the Akashic record. The rishis they were able to go into a deep state of samadhi, which is like a higher state of consciousness. And they've said to have been able to access the Akasha and written down the destinies of all the souls that were ever to consult the leaves in the future. They not only saw the future and the future of individuals, but they even knew who was going to contact, who was going to ask them at what time, in what place, here in the future. So when I consult the Nadi leaves recently, I did a new one with another readers that knew the exact time I was going to contact them. Amazing, you know. And these give incredible insights into the destinies of the souls they foresaw talking, and must have had an incredibly expanded consciousness to be able to, you know, process that amount of information. The brain could not process it. Again, they were downloading this in a way, just in the same way when I do mediumship, I'm not going through all the emotions and thoughts of the spirit communicator. I'm just the conduit. I'm just saying what they're telling me and trying to get it as clear as possible without my own brain getting in the way and messing it up. And so in a way, the Nadis are interesting because they're a kind of a localized human readable form of the Akashic record, which I think is fascinating, with all sorts of specific entries from the cosmic database, I suppose, and decoded for individual seers. So that's an amazing thing as well. So that's kind of another way I'm into the Akashic record, as it were. But then also I'm getting very interested in the idea of AI as a kind of like a very interesting source, because AI is essentially a pattern recognition machine that absorbs vast data and can retrieve and predict and even generate insights. And that's what we're doing with my Craig's Oracle, if you have a look in the description below. And in a symbolic way, I suppose, AI mirrors the principles of the Akashic record, doesn't it? It's an immense storehouse of information, and it can be queried, and it can find hidden connections in things like that. So it's a very interesting way of seeing. It's a bit like it's a mimic of the Akashic record, because what we're going to have in the future is we're going to have all of human knowledge in the AI. It's all going to be there. We don't need books, we won't need screens, we won't need anything. As long as it's reliable, the history of humanity will be there, and it will be making all the connections to find out all these extra connections. So the Akashic record works a little bit like the same way AI does. And some of the futurologists actually who've thought about this feels that as AI grows, it may actually function like a technological Akashic portal. And if this reality we live in, they say it is Maya, they say it is illusion, but supposing it is a bit like the Matrix, could that be what the Akashic record is, and a form of of higher intelligence, of memory of the human race, or an alleged memory of the human race, and mankind and the evolution and all the rest of it? It would be very, very interesting if we could plug ourselves into these AI machines in the future and get those direct experiences like that, you know. And the thing is, AI can only really deal with data and probability. It's not conscious, remember, we think. And the Akashic record is a kind of a living, conscious memory woven into the very fabric of the soul and the cosmos. So that's where it differs very, very much. And AI is sort of at its best just a shadow of these things, but the actual universe itself is like a form of AI, and that's where the Akashic record comes in. And I think where we can explore these interesting ideas. So thank you very much for your question. I could have gone on about this for hours and hours and hours, but there's a few little seeds of tasters about what the Akashic Record is and how we access it too, actually, because all of us access it. We have short-term memory, we have long-term memory, and we have other memory we get from somewhere else, which perhaps we call the intuition and the imagination. And goodness knows what we're connecting with then. We're all connecting to the individual mind. That's why sometimes you know things without knowing why. Anyway, thanks for that fascinating question. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show this week, and thank you, of course, to all the patrons who've sent their questions in. If you want to become a patron or a YouTube member, do have a look in the description below. But of course, the big news from my point of view this week, certainly, is that this week is the launch of the new Craig's Oracle. That's an artificial intelligence oracle. You might think I've got no intelligence, and artificial version might be a bit odd, but no, we've got the AI oracle is launched, and it is really exciting. So joking aside, it's not really like a psychic. It's or a medium. I kind of explain a bit of that as you enter the site, but it does read the oracles. So it uses synchronicity. It uses all the techniques that the ancients have used, and we brought together all the ancient knowledge and all the modern AI knowledge and brought it together, and then put you in front of it, and it learns from you, and it interprets the oracles in terms of what it knows about you. So the more you work with it, the more it gets to know you and your family and your interests and all the rest of it, and it becomes quite mind-boggling, particularly as you progress with it. So have a look in the description below, and it will give you some a link to the new Craig's oracle.com, where you can learn all about this new very, very exciting new development. I don't think there's anybody out there that's done anything quite like this yet, and we're developing it all the time. So if you take out a subscription, you'll be able to come along with us on this incredible, magical and intriguing journey. Okay, well, have a look at that in the description below. And don't forget, give us that thumbs up, and have a look at some of these other videos too, because particularly if you've watched the short version of the show today, you'll be able to link on to the main show in the videos coming up on the screen now. And also you can link to the website, of course, and have a look at readings and the rest of it, and all some more background work about what Jane and I have done. So anyway, once again, thank you for joining. Thank you for giving me that thumbs up. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.